WLTZ First News starts right now.
Good evening and welcome to Election Central 2014. Tonight we have live team coverage of the midterm election races in both Georgia and Alabama.
Plus, we have a local expert, Dr. Frederick Gordon, joining us on set to analyze the current political climate in our statewide and local races coming up on WLTZ First News.
Good evening, everyone. It has been election day all day, and you have one more hour, though, to get your vote in, so there's still time. We're keeping you up to date with the latest election news. Paris Holmes is joining us live at the Citizens Service Center.
Some really important local elections in Columbus and the surrounding counties. I caught up with some of the candidates as they try and drive home why they want you to vote for them. Incumbent Debbie Buckner is seeking re-election for State House Seat 137. She's been criticized by her opponent, local attorney Stacey Jackson, for not advocating for the people in Talbot and Meriwether County. He says there should be more economic development. Buckner says it was the recession.
People were not willing to invest in anything new because everything was so uncertain. We had several very large developments up in Meriwether County where people have been hired. We also created jobs in Talbot County with a $5 million renovation of the K-12 school.
The tide has turned, according to Buckner, and with another term, she says she can accomplish more.
With another session, I think we can get a bill passed to help with some tax incentives to help some new industry come to rural part of the district.
Another important race, State Senatorial Seat 29. Senator Josh McCoon is being challenged by newcomer Brian Roseland, who says he will be available to all constituents.
I think that my opponent doesn't make himself available enough to the people of State Senate District 29. We need a senator that is going to listen to the people of our region.
McCoon says he has real solutions to District 29's problems.
We don't need sort of pie-in-the-sky theories that sound nice.
And whether or not he wins tonight's election, he will continue to remain active.
The only thing that would change is I wouldn't be in Atlanta casting votes, but I would still plan on staying very engaged in the community.
I tried to speak to candidate Stacey Jackson earlier today, but he was in court. However, when I did speak to him, he said his #1 priority is economic development. Polls close at 7, so if you get in line by then, you still can cast your ballot no matter how late it is. So make sure you get out there and vote. Dee, Matt?
Thanks so much, Paris. Right now, we're going to head on over to East Alabama. We're going to Auburn.
That's where NBC 38's Dorothy Sherman is standing by at the WLTZ Auburn Bureau. How's the election going in Lee County, Dorothy?
Well, there's about 2 hours left of voting time here in Lee County. Now, if you're wondering what's on the ballot, what you'll be voting for, here are some of the races that we are following. For Alabama governor, there's incumbent Republican Robert Bentley against Democratic candidate Parker Griffith. For Alabama attorney general, there's incumbent Republican Luther Strange and Democrat Joe Hubbard. On the Lee County ballot, seeking re-election for State Representative District 79 is Republican Mike Hubbard against Democrat Shirley Scott Harris. State Representative District 80, there's Republican Leslie Vance and Democratic candidate Tillman Pugh. State Representative District 83, there's Republican Gary Head against Democrat George Bandy. Now, also on the ballot, there are 5 constitutional amendments that voters can vote on. The proposed amendments range from making the right to bear arms a fundamental right and increasing the number of votes required for the Alabama legislature to pass unfunded mandates on local school boards. Guys?
Thanks so much, Dorothy.
And right now we're going to check over with that election night forecast with Matt Winch joining us now in the Weather Center.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, thanks a lot, Matt D. Yeah, weather non-factor today. Beautiful conditions once again across the Chattahoochee Valley. Want to give you your evening forecast, though, if you are heading on out to the polls here late this evening. Right now, we've got a few high clouds like we pictured coming into the area off a cold front well to the west. So we are dealing with some cloud cover, temperatures around 67. When those polls close at 7 o'clock, we're talking more comfortable conditions. Temperatures dropping to about 63, and then we'll be cooling down quickly tonight before the clouds come in, so about 59 degrees around 8 o'clock. In the forecast, we're going to talk about rain finally making a return to the area over the next several days. We've got cooler conditions to speak of later on this week, and then another cold spell. Computer models continue to hint at it. We'll bring you the latest update on the cool air potential this weekend ahead in the forecast. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Matt. Certainly one thing that did not happen, the weather didn't interfere.
Nope.
That was good. Nobody had any excuses. We're excited to have this evening with us Dr. Frederick Gordon. He's live on set to help us kind of analyze what's going on in the race.
And Dr. Gordon is the chairman of the Political Science Department at Columbus State University. Nice enough to bring his political expertise to us. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's get right to it. In the race for U.S. Senate between Michelle Nunn, David Perdue. Here you got the popularity name recognition. With Nunn, you have an open seat left by Saxby Chambliss. So really kind of a wide open race playing out right now.
I think so, and I think what makes it so interesting is that the poll numbers keep telling us that it's possible that we could be looking even at a runoff. And so one of the things that we have to consider is that you have a really very important election, hasn't been controlled by the Democrats, and ultimately there's being a lot of support to try to make this an extremely competitive race.
Do you think that this was because Michelle Nunn surging as she did because of her father's tailcoats, name recognition, or do you think that the state is swinging a little bit more?
I think it's
in that direction.
I think in many cases there's both factors. I think certainly name recognition, but at the end of the day, you do have to go out and campaign and actually go out and solicit
She was
votes.
here, many visits.
That's
here.
correct. So I think ultimately it really is the campaign trail that also makes people connect with the person who's running for office.
And the race for governor is also looking like a close race. We have incumbent Republican Nathan Deal. He's going up against a challenger as well, Jason Carter. And again, kind of have that brand recognition from the Democratic side of the ticket.
This is true, and I think what makes this so interesting as another exciting race is that you have both the Senate as well as the governor race, both in tightly contested races, and I think that's what both of those coming together really makes this a really unusual election season.
Especially for a midterm cycle.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wow, a little bit closer to home. Very interesting race here in the Columbus area, because in the Georgia State Representative District 137 seat, we kind of hinted with that with Parrish just a moment ago, Debbie Buckner facing a political newcomer who happens to be an African American, who happens to be a Republican, challenging an incumbent who's very popular. Does he have a chance?
Well, one of the things, you don't know until the votes are all in. So that's one of the key things to consider. The other thing to look at is the issue of the power of incumbency. Debbie Buckner has been in office since '03, so that is always a challenge. But again, it's very difficult to make that that claim or that assertion only until the election polls are in.
Yes.
And so then another local Georgia Senate seat's up for grabs. Incumbent Josh McCoon taking on his first re-election bid against Brian Roseland, as Parrish touched on as well. Any chance of an upset there, as it looks like, again, that power of incumbency could take the day?
Incumbency, and I think ultimately the issues that people can connect with in terms of the economy, in terms of who has the most, where people have most confidence for a particular candidate. I think the ultimate issue really comes down to there is name recognition, there's somebody who's already been in the office. So that's a challenge, but again, we'll have to wait and see.
And McCoon, looking at McCoon, do you think part of his appeal is that he's almost like a political rock star locally? Because if there's an issue, there's Josh McCoon. If there's something happening, he's in the midst of it, and he's kind of like Teflon. People like him. Yeah, it just...
Well, I think ultimately candidates need to be out there and to connect with the public. So it's constantly a constant campaign effort to make those things happen.
And one last big thing that we're keeping an eye on in Alabama, the state representative race in Lee County. You have Mike Hubbard, the Speaker of the House, and he is under attack, it seems like, or at least that's what he's claiming with his indictment.
Well, there's nothing light about an indictment. So ultimately, when you have those charges brought up against you, it certainly can rock or certainly challenge somebody's candidacy. This is something that we're going to have to continue to monitor very closely, because even after the election, that issue's not over with. So that's something we're going to have to pay real close attention to.
And he's hoping, you know, his, I guess, co-defendant, or, you know, the trial that went before him, he was found innocent, and that trial was centered on whether or not he was dealing with Mike. Yeah.
Well, the whole thing here is really centers around ethics and ultimately how you can address those issues. So I think this is an issue that's going to be long-standing. It's going to go beyond the election.
All right. Wow. Thank you so much for letting us
you.
kind of pick your brain, Dr. Gordon.
Thank you.
It's been fun. All right.
All righty.
Still ahead on WLTZ First News, we will have more live coverage of Decision 2014. We're going to take you to a voter turnout look at Georgia and Alabama.
Plus a quick look at local headlines making news on this election night, including the sentence handed down today for 2 Columbus murder suspects.
You're watching WLTZ First News with Dee Armstrong, Matt Lally, weather with Matt Wentz, and sports with Josh Pate. WLTZ First News continues in high definition.
Welcome back, everyone, and thank you so much for staying with us. We're keeping up with the latest in tonight's Election 2014 coverage.
Paris Holmes is still at the Citizen Service Center as they continue to tally up those numbers.
Polls close at 7, so you guys still have a little time to cast your ballot. We caught up with the Director of Elections and Registration, Nancy Boren, earlier today, and she said that she hasn't had any reported problems at any of the polling places today. In fact, she's really excited about the turnout so far.
So far, we had lines as early as 6:30 this morning at some of our polling sites, and the flow has been steady throughout the day. Our early voting turnout was very good. We voted over 16% of the registered voters, active registered voters in Muskogee County, so we were very excited about that turnout.
I just saw it.
Auburn, NBC 38's Dorothy Sherman. She joins us from the WLTZ Auburn Bureau.
Now, Dorothy has the very latest on the voting in Lee County for us. Dorothy, how's it going over there?
Well, you still have time to vote in Lee County if you have not done so already. Polls close in a couple of hours at 7 Central. Now, so far, the Lee County Elections Manager Robert Garris tells me that voter turnout has been light to moderate and polling locations seem to be running smoothly. Garris says there's no official voter turnout prediction, but turnout could be around 35 to 40% here in Lee County. Statewide, Alabama Secretary of State predicts 48 to 50% of active voters will head to the polls today. And as you can imagine, polls will likely pick up now because it is 5 o'clock in most parts of Lee County. People are just now getting off work rather, and they'll be heading to the polls as well. So the traffic might pick up, but hopefully that won't stop you or anyone else from heading out to the polls, guys.
Thanks so much, Dorothy. Now be sure to stick around for Alabama First News tonight. That's at 11:10 Central.
We'll have more from Dorothy as she heads out to a couple of campaign headquarters as well. Well, in our local headlines today, money problems are forcing one of the area's largest employers to eliminate more than 200 positions in the coming months. Today, Columbus Regional Health CEO Scott Hill announcing the healthcare system would be cutting more than $27 million from the budget, including the elimination of 219 positions in the organization. And of those jobs, 99 of them are currently filled by employees, meaning they will be laid off. The 219 represents about 3% of the 3,100 person workforce at Columbus Regional. The healthcare provider says a loss in insurance reimbursements and an increase in bad debt and charity care have caused the hospital to lose money each of the past 2 years.
And in some court news this evening, a sentencing hearing in court for 2 Columbus men charged with murder. Jarvis Alexander and Joshua Leonard were both sentenced to life in prison for the murder of 20-year-old Grimes. They say that they would be eligible for parole after serving 33 years. Grimes was shot multiple times by both men and left for dead in his car. Grimes was paralyzed and lived for about a year before he finally died.
And it's time now for your chance to win $100 with the WLTZ Cash Call code word. So here is tonight's code word. It is coming up right here, Dateline NBC, excuse me. So be sure to watch NBC Primetime tonight between 8 and 9 for the cash call symbol to pop up on your screen. Be the 8th caller to the number shown. Give the correct code word. Win $100 sponsored by Headquarter Nissan.
What a day, and the weather cooperated. That was so nice, and even the elderly had an easy time to get out and vote. No excuses.
Right, and Matt Wentz will be joining us after the break with a look at that forecast for us.
You're watching WLTZ First News, putting you first. And now, WLTZ First News weather with Matt Wentz.
Very good Tuesday evening to you, everybody. Beautiful day once again outside. Things starting to change in the atmosphere, though, and you can see it here on our satellite radar. We've had the clear skies today. We thought we'd have those high clouds off to the system well to the west. Certainly was the case, making for a beautiful sunset here this evening. But we've got some rain showers well to the northwest, a cold front approaching the area that will slowly creep its way in here over the next 24 hours. But a beautiful evening. Columbus State live look right now, currently sitting at 66 degrees. It's down from 70 degrees last hour. Notice how once the sun goes down. Temperature's going to drop pretty quickly this evening, back into the 50s, but expecting some cloud cover later on this evening, and that cloud cover should help to insulate our atmosphere just a little bit, so temperatures tonight not going to drop too quickly after that. So here's your big picture. We're watching this cold front. It's now gathering moisture from the Gulf of Mexico as the high pressure helps to pump it in here. Lots of much needed rainfall across drought-stricken Texas all the way up to areas of Indiana, and this rainfall will slowly slide off to the east, but it'll start to weaken as it does, so not expecting a big rainfall event on this as it hits sometime during the day Thursday. So here's your futurecast agreeing tomorrow we have an increase in cloud cover. I think we'll still see sunshine outside, but those clouds will thicken up throughout the daytime. Maybe a spotty evening shower. Majority of the rain should be off to the north and the west in the afternoon. Then you can see during the daytime Thursday, our computer models bring a front through here real quickly. I think it'll take its time, so maybe some showers across the area Thursday. Again, not a big deal, but then that front goes by. We bring in clear conditions and cool conditions as we head on into Friday, and then after that, another front comes in. Here's your temperature forecast. You can see tomorrow our warm spot, but then that front goes by Thursday. Friday, Saturday will have a much different feel to it, but another front I'm watching later on this weekend. Couple computer models disagree, but I'm going with a cold blast of air heading on into Monday and Tuesday. They'll have snow well up to the north again, much like we did last weekend with unseasonably cool conditions across the eastern half of the country. So I think our temperatures will be knocked back into the 50s to start next week. But overnight tonight, 49 degrees, a little warmer than where we've been. We'll have partly cloudy skies tomorrow. I think we do 75. We'll have increasing clouds, maybe a spotty shower. In your 7-day forecast, you can see things a little rainy on Thursday across the area, but then Friday looking good. And this weekend, a couple bouts of some gusty winds heading on into Sunday night, Monday, and it'll be breezy on Friday too as we usher in that cooler air.
Looking really nice. Thanks, Matt. Josh.
Another big weekend coming up in the SEC. We're going to check in with Gus Malzahn, Mark Richt. They both met with the media today. We'll get to that when we come back.
You're watching WLTZ First News, putting you first. And now, WLTZ First Sports with Josh Pate.
Well, it's a new week for Georgia as they try to move past that painful loss to Florida last Saturday in Jacksonville. The Dogs allowed the Gators to rush for 418 yards. That's the most they've allowed on the ground since 1978. During his press conference today, Coach Mark Richt was asked about stopping the run and how his team was going to prepare to make sure that never happens again.
Everybody's going to run the ball to a certain degree, and if they have a lot of success, they'll probably keep doing it. But more than likely, if they stay true to what they like running, they like play action pass, they'll drop back and spread you out and let this big, tall pocket passer sling the ball too. So I think we'll see a little bit of everything from him.
Now, some good news here. Rick said there's a reasonable chance tailback Sony Michel could return for this weekend's game at Kentucky. Meanwhile, the Auburn Tigers coming off a huge win on the road over Ole Miss, and they'll be looking to continue that momentum into this weekend's home game against Texas A&M. This Saturday will mark the final home SEC game for that senior Tiger class. They still have 3 more games following this Saturday, though, a home game against Samford and 2 away games at Georgia and at Bama. In his weekly presser today, head coach Gus Malzahn said after this weekend's big win, he's happy with how his team is handling the difficulty of their schedule.
You know, we still have 4 games left, and you know, we're focused on this game. We know we're going to get their best, and our guys understand that. And like we talked about on Sunday, we got to get better. We got to figure out a way to get better in all 3 phases, not just this week, but every week.
And more good news for Auburn here as well. Today, quarterback Nick Marshall was named a semifinalist for the Davey O'Brien Award that honors the NCAA's best quarterback every year. So just because it's election day doesn't mean we can't stop to talk football every night. That's what you always tell me, Dee.
Play ball means a lot of things.
That's what you
Politicians play ball.
And a big democratic process taking place tonight, the second round of the college football playoff poll being released as well.
Let's see how much that one moves around. See how high Ohio State moves, Matt Wentz. We'll see.
Not worried about
it. To be seen.
Still to come on WLTZ First News this election night.
We're getting you ready for election night once the polls are closed here on WLTZ NBC 38.
You're watching WLTZ First News, putting you first. WLTZ First News continues in high definition.
Again, we want to thank you so much for staying with us for your election 2014 coverage. And we want to remind you, it's early. You still have some time to vote if you haven't already. The polls are open for about 30 more minutes in Georgia, another 1.5 hours, so there's time in Alabama.
And as the numbers roll in, we want you to keep it right here with WLTZ First News all evening long. We'll be giving you all the numbers throughout NBC primetime tonight. Plus, we'll be updating the numbers all evening long at WLTV.com and on our WLTZ First News Facebook page. And be sure to join us for an extended newscast tonight at 10:56 Eastern Time as we get you up to all the latest numbers as they become final in Georgia and in Alabama. It's going to be an exciting night.
Thank you so much for watching WLTZ First News. For news anytime from your neighborhood, go to WLTZ.com.
And the NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams is coming up next.